There's a lot of measuring and there's a lot of tracking. There isn't a lot of managing, and there certainly isn't a lot of coaching. And so just because you track something doesn't mean you're going to improve it. I can step on the scale 20 times in the same day, and it's not likely I'm going to lose weight. Just because I know how much I weigh doesn't mean I'm improving my weight.
Get on there again.
Even with this framework, all it does is give sales leaders more dashboards and a better appetite for what they can track and measure. And it's created a very strong culture of inspection. Just because you can measure it doesn't mean you're going to improve it. Determine what activities your salespeople need to engage in to move the right KPIs in the right direction that are connected to the results you get. Execution still has to happen. People still have to be managed and coached. And cracking the sales management code didn't really get into that second piece.
And now the man you've been waiting for. He is the real Thriller in Manila. The undisputed, undefeated, reigning, defending, pound for pound, heavyweight John, the sales machine, Rankins!
All right, folks, you're in for a treat today. Today, we're bringing you one of the most respected voices in B2B sales transformation, Michelle Vazana, Chief Innovation Officer of Imparta and co-author of Cracking the Sales Management Code, Crushing Quota, and Sales Agility. Michelle has spent over 2 decades researching what separates elite sales performers from everyone else. She's co-authored industry-defining frameworks, trained thousands of sales professionals across 6 continents, and developed Imparta's award-winning 3D Advantage methodology. Trusted by Fortune 500 companies worldwide, her expertise turning sales management from guesswork into science. From frontline reps to C-suite revenue leaders, Michelle's research-backed systems are the gold standard for organizations serious about scalable, predictable growth. This is essential listening for anyone building a world-class sales organization. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thanks so much, John. Happy to be here.
Yeah, how did you get started on this journey? Because, I've been in sales for over 30 years. And that does not include when I was a boy knocking on doors to mow your lawn or throw newspapers. Yeah. So how'd you get started?
Well, I actually got started in sales with IBM. So I was actually a computer science major, and I had an internship with IBM for the last 2 years of school. And I thought they were going to have me be a programmer or something. And they put me in a store. They were retail stores, IBM product centers. And so instead of doing programming for IBM, I was selling computers and typewriters and printers, and I had not been in sales before. So that was my first entry into sales. And it was by accident, really. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I went to work for Xerox after that, and, the rest is history.
Yeah, old Big Blue, IBM. Yeah. I did a lot of research on IBM when I was young, even about how every executive at IBM was required to wear blue suits because of the psychology of trust. Was that all true at IBM?
Well, I don't know, John, because I didn't get hired on in B2B sales for IBM after I graduated. That's when I went to Xerox. So I worked in their retail arm, but it was pretty buttoned down when I was there. I can say it was definitely buttoned down. And when I went to Xerox, it was a much different culture. It was a much more a little more laid back, very corporate, but a lot more laid back. But the sales training was unbelievable. And I was very fortunate to start out there.
You've been doing this now for many years. And was Cracking the Sales Management Code the first documentation you put out there as far as, look, this is how to scale predictable revenue?
No, it was the first research-backed book that we put out that turned into a framework called the Sales Management Code. But I had been working with sales managers for many years prior to that time, doing a lot of coaching, establishing cadences and that sort of thing. So when Jason and I came together around that research, we were able to put these ideas together and develop something that was very comprehensive and not horribly complex, but different. It's funny because most people that read the Sales Management Code that are in sales leadership, they say something like, well, I could have written that book. And my answer is, but you didn't. You know what I mean? You actually didn't. You didn't do the research. You didn't do the hard work in order to take something as complex as sales metrics and put it in a workable framework that managers can understand and use.
Everybody says they can do everything, and then they don't do it. Someone else does it, and then they try to tear them down. Those are called haters. Seriously, because I wrote a book called The Life Mastery Playbook, and that came about because I went to a Tony Robbins event. You know Tony?
Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I certainly know of him.
Yeah, so, I traveled the world with him for a while. Anyway, I was already a sales leader, and I was looking to take my game to the next level. So I got into personal development. And initially, and this was when I was 21, I was running my first business in Denver, Colorado. I just needed different frameworks, right, to lead my people. I mean, I didn't have a father or whatever, so I was just figuring shit out. And so when I went there, everybody's like, so what's your life management system? And that was me. I was like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, what do you mean life management system? Is there such a thing? Because I'm clueless. And then they were talking about, did you have a breakthrough? Did you have a breakthrough? And I'm like,
what do you mean?
I live in America too, but you guys are speaking Russian. Life management system. I don't know what you're talking about. No one gave me instructions, right? And so, there's power in providing people with frameworks. So I have total respect for what you do. And cracking the sales management code comes from an entirely different perspective rather than just targets.
Yes.
It comes from setting the objectives. I've trained tens of thousands of salespeople all over the world. And most people, the salespeople get it wrong. The sales leaders get it wrong. And the C-suite gets it wrong. They put out a number without being objective, without looking at the market share, without looking at territory, without looking what's the head count we need to cover it. You guys did that. So tell me about how that came about. You guys just started, and I read the book, but for the listeners on this podcast, maybe potentially they haven't.
So it didn't start out. We didn't start out intending to build a framework. We started out intending to do a best practices study. So we gathered information with the help of the University Sales Education Foundation. We gathered information from a variety of very large global companies, and we wanted to know which metrics that they use to measure and manage their sales force. And we fully anticipated that we would gather this information, collate some best practices, and then share that with the world. And that didn't happen. And so there wasn't really any rhyme or reason from one company to the next as to how they were using this information to make decisions or manage their sales force. And to your point, even companies that had a lot of rigor in the way that they developed their targets, that rigor did not translate down to the frontline sellers. And so there was this big disconnect between the analytics that went into target setting and the everyday execution that had to happen in order to actually meet and exceed those targets. And that was really our goal with cracking the sales management code, which is let's level the playing field, help people understand what metrics are, what the different levels of metrics are, what they're used for, and how they can be used together to create clarity of task at the frontline level so that organizations have a much better chance and likelihood of hitting those targets. So that was really what turned out to be the goal.
Amen and amen. And from there, it became framework. Whenever I'm coaching sales leaders, if you want your success to be automatic, you need to be scientific. And so when I read the book, I'm like, finally someone gets it. Like I've worked with so many different organizations and sales leaders around the world. It was just so enlightening and validating for me to read something where someone gets it, because everybody talks about KPIs and a lot of them don't talk about what are the sales generating activities.
Right.
I talk about you want your sales to be automatic, be scientific. You got to MTM everything, manage, track, and measure in order to coach and reward and scale. So if you cannot manage, track, and measure, you cannot improve.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues, John, is that there's a lot of tracking. There's a lot of measuring and there's a lot of tracking. There isn't a lot of managing, and there certainly isn't a lot of coaching. And so just because you track something doesn't mean you're going to improve it. I can step on the scale 20 times in the same day, and it's not likely I'm going to lose weight, right? I can't, just because I know how much I weigh doesn't mean I'm improving my weight.
Come on,
And
get
that's
on
the
there
issue.
again. Get on there
What?
again. I said, get on there again.
I mean, it's what's happened, even with this framework, all it does is give sales leaders more dashboards and a better appetite for what they can track and measure. And it's created a very strong culture of inspection. And so that's what the second book was about, Crushing Quota, which is just because you can measure it doesn't mean you're going to improve it. So the first task is determine what activities your salespeople need to engage in to move the right KPIs in the right direction that are connected to the results you want. Job one. But once you do that, execution still has to happen. People still have to be managed and coached. And Cracking the Sales Management Code didn't really get into that second piece. We did a whole series of additional studies that explored how do the highest performing sales managers actually manage and coach salespeople differently than their lower performing peers. And so the first thing, which is not a surprise, we found out is coaching to activities is by far the highest impact coaching managers can do. It's much more high impact than coaching results. It's much more high impact.
I'm in love with you. Keep
Yeah,
it
well,
going.
the research supports it. The research
I
supports it.
know. I've been in the trenches for 30 years. This is what I've been saying for 30 years.
Yep.
Why didn't you bring that book to me 30 years ago? You made me learn
because
the
I was
hard
just
way.
starting out selling. I couldn't have brought it 30 years ago. I had to have the experience and do the research. So it's finally there.
No, brilliant. And so it's really about managing the activities, right? So how many calls are you doing? Because how do you improve something you cannot measure?
It's more than that. So let's just say that I measure how many calls my sellers make. And my criteria is that they make 20 calls a week. And let's say they're making 20 calls a week. I can check the measurement box. I can't check the quality box. I can check the quantity box. I can't check the quality box. And so that's where the big disconnect comes, because not only do sellers need to know what to do, they need to know how to do it. What does good look like? And what guidance and coaching are sales managers giving their sellers around the activities that matter most? And all too often, the answer is very little.
Yeah. You're writing songs. You're like singing to me right now.
Well, you've experienced it. You've lived it.
Well,
right?
I built the software where you can manage, track, measure, align, coach, and reward for every activity done. And that's the point of the software. I look at CRMs and they're nothing more than an address book to me. So I literally went to HubSpot, Salesforce, Zoho. I went to all these different companies and I said, look, I need a system where I can manage, track, measure, and then align, reward salespeople so that I can reinforce the behavior that I want them to do, not police them. I want rewards, recognition, competition, compensation built into the system. Yeah. I want mission control. So when they go into the system, they know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it so that they do it. They're not stopped by fear. This is what I want. And so on the left side, what to do, when to do it, how to do it. On the right, don't forget this. Why are they doing it? Mm-hmm. Why? So on the right, I want the rewards. I want the goals. I want their targets. I want them to see that they can track all of their activity. And now it has trends so they can get on a roll, just like Duolingo and that app that went to 1 billion. So I'm like, give me that. Yeah. And you know what I got from all of them? Deer in the headlights.
Yeah. Well, because they're technologists. They're not salespeople. They're technologists. And they built a technology platform that they force fitted into Salesforces versus the other way around, right? And so by design, they were going to be flawed.
Yeah, and I came to that conclusion after every single one of them said, we don't do that. We have a sales pipeline and you can track and measure. But I'm like, that doesn't drive performance. That's just another address book. I can do that with Excel. Yeah. And I am. And that's why I'm coming to you, because I'm managing 200 offices, 4,000 guys, and I'm losing my hair. I have no life. I need to automate rewards, recognition, coaching. I want automate everything as far as the rewards and recognition. And then I want to eliminate admin. I don't want to do more admin. I want my people to do less so that they're having more conversations, so that they're building relationships. It's crazy. But the CRMs were built for the company, not the salespeople.
That's right.
Because before it was IBM, it was Microsoft, Oracle, SAP. The new guys were Apple and Microsoft, actually. And they were all headhunting each other's salespeople every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when the salespeople left, they took their database.
Yeah.
It's crazy, the history. People think CRM was built for the salesperson. It wasn't.
No, I don't think the people that use it think that.
Yeah.
I think if you've used one for more than 5 minutes, you're very clear that it's not built for salespeople.
Yeah.
But I do think that's changing, actually. I think that some of the CRM companies are going to get their tails handed to them with AI, because the usefulness of the CRM itself is going to decline, in my opinion. And it's going to be interesting to see the impact of AI on all kinds of things, like sales methodology, the role of sales management, how it impacts reporting relationships, deal pursuit. I mean, I think it's going to impact everything. And I don't know what those impacts are going to be yet, but we're pretty advanced in that at Imparta relative to our peers. And it's staggering what's happened in 2 years.
Yeah, it is absolutely staggering. I mean, my entire initiative for this year was take the sales machine, which is a software that empowers the sales individual, the sales team, the sales leader, so that we can crack the sales management code. So when you jump on a call, you're not taking notes. AI is. And then the methodology you're using, AI is listening. Are you using spin selling? Are you using next level sales? Are you banting the customer? Which I don't like bant. I like ants.
Yeah.
I created ants. So we don't need to ask, do you got any money? So you don't have to show up and throw up. That's an old framework.
Yeah.
If you're using medic, our AI can accommodate medic. It can even call you a medic, because you're going to probably need a medic after using that framework. It's complicated. And whoever made that system, I don't know.
Yeah.
But definitely, like you said, they're engineering teams building these sales tools, which are, it doesn't work. You need a sales leader.
Well, it's really interesting, because we're working with clients across the globe now on AI integration. And it's shocking to me how many of these sales platform companies, Salesforce, Lego, like lots of the platform companies who don't have IP, are diving heavily into AI. They're doing AI role plays and all kinds of stuff. The problem is these platforms don't know how to sell, and there's no sales intelligence built into them. And so the client then has to set up all the rubrics, set up all the rules, set up all the tagging. It's this huge amount of work to make those platforms work. And the way that we've gone about it at Imparta has been quite different. And so we differentiate between sort of generic or vanilla AI and sales aware AI. And when I talk about sales aware AI, I'm not talking about ChatGPT, who's read spin selling and consultative selling and strategic selling. I'm talking about AI that actually knows how buyers buy, knows how to sell across that entire journey, and has all of those best practices embedded in it, available all the time, on demand. And that's what none of these platform companies have. And that's what ChatGPT doesn't have. And so a lot of companies that are transitioning their sales force into using AI, unfortunately, are leaning very heavily into these generic AI systems like Copilot and some of the platform companies who do role plays. And they're not seeing the type of insight that they're hoping to see, because they're using another platform or technology to help them sell that doesn't know how to sell. So what we're doing is we're bringing intelligent AI to live within these platforms and to integrate with these platforms. So that if you want to leverage HubSpot, or you want to leverage a Lego, or you want to leverage Salesforce, you can bring all of these together all of these AI applications, you can bring them together and integrate them and create one sort of user interface for the seller. So they don't have to determine, should I go to Copilot? Should I go to Salesforce? Should I go to SalesLoft? Where should I go to get this job done? It can figure it out for them. And it's pretty amazing what we're seeing happen regarding that integration.
Yeah, let's go deeper into that because, I that's my initiative for this year. And I'm going to be a little bit selfish. It is my podcast. So I'm going to be a little bit selfish, but I'm guaranteeing that the listeners out there are going to absolutely love this because, you've done it from cracking the sales code to sales agility and crushing quota. That sales intelligence, I talk about all the time. People ask me, okay, you're the sales machine, so you're a CRM. I'm like, well, actually, we have a CRM, but we're so much more than that. So we're like business intelligence for your C-suite, operational intelligence for your sales leaders and operations, and field sales intelligence because we have an app that works online or offline. I don't care if you're in Sahara, Africa. It works, right?
Yeah.
So that's all driven by sales intelligence, my sales intelligence by just going in the field. So as an example, I went to the number 3 cola. I don't want to say their name, but we all know who number 3 is. They used to be number 2 and now they're number 3 in certain territories I work in. And to find out they were using an app that's connected to Salesforce, all difficult, and they are losing market share. Long story short, I'm a field warrior. I'm like, show me what you're doing. Show me the activity of your guys. Yeah, they're all doing admin. 40% of their time, they're filling out forms. They're checking shelves of different grocery stores, and they just have to replenish. And I completely re-engineered it from a sales mind of like, look, I used to visit 200 people a day selling door to door. Most people say, wow, they have to visit 50 stores. I'm like, that ain't no big deal. I used to run all day. When I got out of the military, I used to run all day. I have to see 200 to make my $100 bill. Yeah. So when I went in there, I'm like, but they're only seeing 30. I'm like, of course they're only seeing 30. Look at how much admin they're doing. And then they have to take photos of the invoice, send it to accounting, wait for accounting to approve it. I'm like, I automated everything in an app that goes into the business intelligence, everything. And it's just like add to cart, add to cart, add to cart. And it's a commercial app. All they're doing is pushing buttons. I know time and motion, how long they were in that store, when they left that store, how much on average they sold to that store. Everything's automated. They don't do nothing but have conversations and push buttons. And that's what AI needs to do. It needs to automate and eliminate. What I didn't know about the AI world is it's not about building a chatbot or just an agentic agent. You have an army of agents that's doing each different thing. That's updating the deal real time. That's letting the individual know. Are they using the framework? Are they getting resistance? What's happening? Hey folks, if you're enjoying this episode and you're picking up what I'm putting down and what the guests are actually putting out there, do me a favor, like and comment what you liked about the episode, or even comment what would you like to hear? What topics would you like to hear in the future? Because believe me, it matters. I read absolutely every single one of them, and I want to bring you more and more value to help companies scale so that we can grow this podcast to make a bigger difference. Now let's get back to the show.
Let me talk about some of the most pervasive problems I see out there. So there's a couple of very large global companies that I'm working with right now. I won't mention the names, but they're at this sort of tipping point where they know that they need to get ahead of the AI bandwagon, right? They already feel like they're behind, and they probably are, but they don't know what that next move is. So they've got Copilot and they've got AI applications within all their platform pieces, like in their tech stack. Let's say they have 10 pieces in their tech stack, 10 different platforms in their tech stack. There's an AI application in every single one of those. They're like, oh my God, like this is crazy. So none of those AI applications does the job. They do one small piece of the job and they don't talk to each other. And so the way of the future isn't just agentic AI, because what an agent does is it just accomplishes a function. So you can have an AI agent that analyzes sales calls. You can have an AI agent that writes emails. You can have AI agent that does research on companies' financial health. An agent is nothing more than a program that accomplishes a task, right? It does it pretty well, but it's literally just a taskmaster. And so as you know, because you've been a big student of sales for a long time, salespeople have to do many, many, many different types of activities, utilizing many different resources. And so agentic AI alone is not the answer, because you have all these different platforms with all these different applications and all these different agents. How do they talk to each other? How do they not overcomplicate a seller's life and give a seller more to have to figure out? And so the way that this is all coming together is through something called an orchestrator. And an orchestrator is what you might think of as, you've got your person there, they're managing the entire orchestra. The violinist, the cello, all these different instruments are weighing in on this music that's being conducted by this orchestrator, right? This conductor. And that is basically the future of agentic AI, is you have all these different agents, and these agents are connected to this orchestrator. And the orchestrator provides the interface to the salesperson, the sales manager, whoever's using it. And the orchestrator will do a couple of things. Well, more than a couple things, but two primary things. It'll take input from a seller or a user who says, I need to do X. And the orchestrator will say, okay, if you want to do X, you got to go here. And then if you want to do Y, you got to go here, and I'll send you there. You don't have to figure it out. I will take your request and I'll send you to the right place, like a traffic cop, right? So that's a really powerful function, because if I'm a seller and I've got SalesLoft and I've got Gong and I've got Salesforce and I've got my Cornerstone LMS, just keep adding. And that's the typical salesperson. They've got all these elements of their tech stack. Well, the future of AI is sellers don't have to worry about that. A seller has an interface with an orchestrator, and the seller says, I want to plan for this call with this company. I'm meeting this kind of person. I need you to do some financial analysis. I want you to learn more about this individual, and I want you to help me plan this first call. And the orchestrator goes wherever it needs to get the information it needs to help that rep accomplish that task. Here's the really interesting thing that I'm finding. So Salesforce, being a technology company, is out there saying, we're the ones that are going to provide this orchestration for you because we have agent force. Well, that's nice. You still don't know how to sell. You have agents that don't know how to sell. Good for you. Good for you. What are you going to do with that? And so we're in a sales cycle, and I'm not knocking Salesforce. They're a great company, but they kind of try to do everything, and a technology company can't do everything because they don't have the interpersonal stuff down, right? They don't have the sales motions down. They've got the technology down. And so right now we're in a live sales cycle where we're competing with Agentforce to be the integrator, to be the orchestrator, to bring all of these pieces together. And we're like a gnat on the body of Salesforce. Like, we're so small compared to Salesforce, but we're so far ahead of them in this AI game. It's remarkable to see. I've seen demos by Salesforce and demos that we're giving our customers about this process. It's completely different. It's almost like we're 5 years ahead of them. And it's shocking. So I don't know how it's going to shake out, but all I can tell you is agentic AI is the future and orchestration is the way to get there.
Yeah, I love it. You're building a symphony.
Yeah.
I'm building my opus. When you talk about sales, marketing, customer service, LMS. So like if you looked at my software, and believe me, I'll be calling you, driving you nuts. You look at our software on the sidebar, it reads smart, literally, because I needed something to be smart. So it reads sales, marketing, achievements, retention, and training. So there's a sales CRM. There's a marketing campaign builder. There's achievements that are really rewards, recognition, competition, compensation that creates accountability, because that's what you need for those activities. There's a customer retention module, and there's a full-on LMS training system. I wanted a system that could be smart, and I didn't have to have those 10 tools siloed with different AI. And I want AI to orchestrate with the sales CRM, the marketing campaign builder, the achievements to create accountability, the customer retention to do upsells and customer service, and the training system whenever an activity is done and it's falling short of best practices, that orchestrator is evaluating that entire process, which is the customer journey and the buyer's journey.
Yeah.
And then you know what it's doing? It's assigning training to that salesperson based on best practices of what they need to do.
That's exactly where it's headed. It's exactly where it's headed. And the challenge with that is you have to have a reliable, accurate mechanism to be able to assess quality. You have to have a mechanism.
I think my mechanism is going to be Michelle Vazana. Why do I need to figure it all out? I'm just in, Southeast Asia, which is, going to be the tiger economies. It's where the puck is going, not where the puck has been.
Yeah. You and Wayne Gretzky.
Well, that's the fact, right? The populations. So what do you think is the biggest mistake? I mean, beyond Salesforce, you're working with lots of different companies to be the conductor of the orchestra.
That's not the only problem that Salesforces are looking to solve, right? These same companies, all these large companies that have to figure out AI, they still have lack of discipline in the sales ranks. They still have lack of management discipline. Coaching still isn't happening. So AI can't completely replace accountability, career development, and coaching. It can't completely replace it. It can augment it, but it can't replace it. Yes. And so the same issues that were in place 10 years ago across organizations globally, they're still there. And once organizations figure out all the metrics, they still don't have the management practices to leverage those metrics. And so they're farther along than they were, but it's still an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Some things remain a challenge over the years, and that's still one.
Yeah. And a lot of people, what I find, complicate systems, complicate the methodology for training people. Yesterday, I was going over the 3 R's, the 3 F's. I've simplified sales into the 3 S's. I had a team of SDRs I was working with, and I love to work with the beginners and new people starting
They're
out.
fun. Yeah.
And I love to walk in front of the room and say, here's the first thing you need to understand about sales. And then I'll write on the board, nobody cares. I look around the room and people are, like disoriented and it's not about you. So nobody cares. That's what you need to understand. They don't care about how long you've been in business. They first have to get to know you, like you, and trust you, right? So sales for me is like Zig Ziglar said many, many years ago, the 3 S's. It's all about service, solving problems, and making sure they're satisfied if you want to create legacy wealth.
Yeah.
And I find that so many leaders and or companies complicate these things.
Oh, they do.
For me, the key is having a great attitude. Because if you have the mindset, I can teach you the skill set.
That's right. You can actually teach mindset too, though. But I think that's kind of a rocky road. And I'll tell you why. Because if I go to Google or even ChatGPT and I say, recommend books on sales mindset, hundreds of them are going to come up. And they're all different. And they all tell me that this is the most important aspect of mindset. And that's it. There's a lot of noise out there. That's the problem, John. There's so much noise. And one of my goals, one of my missions as an adult human in the business world has been to cut through the noise and simplify things for people. I mean, life's complicated, right? That's why frameworks have to be simple. Because if they accurately reflect life, nobody's going to use them because it's too complicated, right? That's why you have to simplify them. Give people the few things that if they do those well, it'll have an outsized impact on their results. But you have to find out what those few things are. And it's the same with mindset. You have to find out, of all the things I can worry about with regard to mindset, what are the few from a sales perspective that are going to make the biggest difference? And we've actually researched that. We got some data on that if you want to hear about it.
I do. As long as you have a great attitude when you're front facing as a customer is what I mean. And everything starts with the mindset. Because if your mindset, if you're not coming from service, you're going to be nervous and your ego is going to take over. And then you're going to start thinking about rejection. So the mindset has to be set. You have to set your mind before you expect to be good at sales.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in violent agreement with that.
I
So
like it.
we I love that term, violent agreement. Most people don't like it, but somehow I like it. It just means I really agree with you, John. I really agree with you with energy behind it.
Go tell me about the research because I'm a nerd.
This was it was pretty because I love research. I'm a research geek. And so there was a study that Imparted did, and it was a study of outliers. So they studied a series of outliers, a group of outliers who, when they gave them competency tests, they scored low, but their performance was really high and it didn't make sense. So they performed far beyond what their competency assessments would indicate they should. And so the leaders at Imparted were very curious, like, what's going on here? Why are these people who have relatively low competency doing so well? And so they did some quantitative research and they did a bunch of focus groups. And what they discovered was there were 3 things about the mindset of these outliers that predicted their success. And one of them was what you mentioned, which is resilience. You have to be able to pick yourself back up when you're thrown to the mat. And how quick you pick yourself up matters. And you have to not take it personally. You have to be able to deal with rejection and keep on keeping on. So you got to be resilient. And if you don't have natural resilience, you can develop it. The next piece of it was rigor. They knew when to go the extra mile. They didn't always work extra hard, but they knew those times where that extra effort was going to likely have payoff. So they were rigorous when it mattered most. And the third one, which in my opinion is probably the most important one, is responsibility. Do I look to myself based on the outcomes I generate, or do I blame the economy? Do I blame the competition? Do I blame my boss? Do I blame my products? Am I looking for other reasons outside of me for the results I generate? And the outliers that were outperforming what we thought they should, they took responsibility. They said, look, this didn't go well. And maybe the competition was tough. Maybe the pricing was off, but what could I have done differently? Where could I have done this better and created a better outcome? So they looked at what they can control and worked on that. So responsibility, rigor, and resilience. Those were the 3 mindset elements that were far more important than anything else in these outliers that we studied.
And I see it so often as far as for years, there's a common denominator. People want success. What holds them back are their limiting beliefs in their mindset. What holds them back is being a victim instead of a victor. Instead of them writing their own story, they blame. They use blame, anger, guilt, shame, bags. They carry these bags around and they blame the company. They blame the product. They blame the sales leader. The outliers are the ones that own it and say, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this happen.
I'm going to improve what I can, which is me.
Yeah. Mindset, skill set, and habits. So I love working and helping individuals transform, companies transform, but like next level sales. So how did I come up with next level sales? I went door to door. I've sold one-on-one. I've sold one-on-many. I've sold from the stage. Then I got into selling in boardrooms and, even selling to enterprise level companies was new to me, but I wanted to figure it out with my team. And I've been in the boardroom answering to 5, 6, 7 different stakeholders and realizing this is a new arena, but let's play.
Yeah, it's fun.
Let's go. Let's get it on.
I agree.
Let's get it on. And I know that I need to enroll every single individual in that room, not just the stakeholder, because I can misinterpret that the CEO is interested and then the IT wasn't enrolled in that meeting and he shuts me down after I leave because of another vendor. I've done these boardroom sales and I come to learn through experience. I closed a $200,000 deal only to find out the CEO said, done, we're in. John knows what he's talking about. We're going with John. He didn't say the sales machine, right? He said, but we're going with John. And so, I'm like, all right, I appreciate you. Only to find out we had to go to procurement and be vested and jump through all these hoops. But knowing what I know from sales, I went in prepared and I even prepared my team before because it was a couple $100,000 deal. And I was like, I really want to work with this company. I want to take them to the next level. And, that'll be a tipping point for us to work with others. So I get to procurement and sure enough, I'm so glad I prepared to make them the hero of the story. I knew
Yeah,
on the day
absolutely.
I've got to give them something so that they're the hero. And I did. And I'm like, man, it's not about the seller's journey. It's about the buyer's journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, I'm still learning. I am such a student of this game. Now, AI is everywhere, but a lot of it's nonsense. People are selling how to learn to use ChatGPT. Just ask ChatGPT how to
I
learn
know.
from it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. I know. I
when
know.
is the last
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
ChatGPT said you're wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
Never. When was the
Yeah.
last time ChatGPT could do math? No, it can't. Like there's so many flaws or I guess just like anything, there's false prophets and, people out there selling the next thing, but they don't understand what is the main objective you want to accomplish. And that's what
Right.
every single one of your research backed books actually deliver.
I hope so. I mean, that was the goal, right? The goal is help people execute more effectively on the things that matter.
And be objective.
Bottom line.
Just like the sales management code. It's not about, okay, give everybody a target. And if you're a public company, they say increase sales. They want bring to the investors. They want 15% growth. That's what they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that becomes the target. But rather
Yeah.
than setting the objective with what is the market share? How many salespeople do you need? Breaking it all down and then setting objectives and sales generating activities that's going to allow you to achieve those numbers with coaching, because it's not going to happen. If they don't have the right mindset, skill set, and habits, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And they have to have the habits. You cannot have the habits for them. I can teach you mindset. I can teach you skill set. I can show you my habits, but you have to establish yours because AI is not going to do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And I think that's where a lot of times we go wrong. When I was doing both the sales manager and the salesperson research, there were some surprising things that came out of that research. And one of them was because I looked at a whole bunch of like management operating rhythms and cadences and plans, most of which failed miserably. And I mean, I was handed some beautiful plans, and within 5 minutes, I could tell you which ones were going to fail and why. And when it comes to habits, and I consider management coaching a habit, you get into the habit and it's got to be the right level of that habit. And what I found in the research is that there was a lot of surprises. I fully expected that the highest performing sales managers would coach for more hours than lower performers. They'd coach more frequently than their lower performance. They'd have more coaching meetings than their lower performers. And exactly none of that was true. Exactly none of it. And so what I learned.
Were you blown away also?
Well, the good news is the research I did was very in depth. So when some of the hypotheses didn't pan out, I had the data underneath of them to figure it out.
Amen.
So hopefully they were well-designed research projects. So I wasn't left with these findings that I didn't know what to do with, right? So what I found is that the most effective sales managers coach less frequently. They have fewer meetings, but they have they have scheduled meetings for the things that matter. They discuss fewer things, but in significantly more depth. And what I finally started calling that was like the minimum effective dose. So the most effective management and coaching is the minimum effective. It's not the maximum. It's not the stretch goal. It's the minimum effective dose that's going to get the job done. And that's counterintuitive because sales is never about the minimum effective dose. It's about the maximum. I got to do the most. I got to set the stretch goal. Not when it comes to management and coaching. Minimum effective dose. That's what the high performers did. And that's a whole mindset shift that I had to start educating managers about is look, it's not about more. Don't hit the more button. That's not the one, right? It's about choosing and being rigorous about what you choose to spend time coaching. And then how you do that matters and how frequently you do that matters. If once a month is enough, don't do it every 2 weeks. If once a quarter is enough, don't do it once a month. Because I've never been a manager who had enough time to do their job. Not one.
Yeah, especially.
So that means you have to prioritize. You have to pick and choose. How do you pick and choose? You pick those important things. Then you formalize those things and make a habit. And you do that around the minimum effective dose.
What I want to go into now is you've trained thousands globally with the 3D Advantage system. Let's go into that and the one insight or the insights that you think have made elite sales teams?
Yeah. So there's actually, when it comes to salespeople, there's actually two sets of research that came together to form that 3D advantage, what we call 3D sales agility. So I did research on sales agility. I did research on how high performing sellers assess the buying situation and then adapt their choices. So they don't always use the same approach. They adapt and they switch and they align their approach to the buyer they're selling to. Average performers don't do that. They use the same approach, whether it's spin selling, consultative selling, challenger selling, they use the same approach regardless. At the same time I was doing the research on sales agility, Richard Barkey, who's our CEO, was leading a team of researchers, and they were doing a very in-depth research study on sales execution. And they started that research project about the time Challenger came out. Remember that back in 2012? It was all the rage. Everybody had to be a challenger. And so my research on sales agility that's in the sales agility code really just shot holes in that. It said, there's not a one size fits all. There's really multiple patterns of behavior, and you got to pick the one that matches the situation. Meanwhile, Richard Barkey and his team were researching what are the underlying dimensions of sales execution that lead to superior execution. So for example, if you're really effective at assessing the buying situation and you choose the right play to that situation, you still have to execute that effectively. And most of my research was not into the aspects of sales execution. It was which tactics did you use? Did you switch up your approach? And did you win? His research was all about what are the primary dimensions of execution that, like the mindset research, that raise to the top, drive the highest levels of performance. And what he found, which was really interesting, which is called the 3D advantage, was that there's actually 3 dimensions to effective selling, not 1, not 2. There's 3. One of them is the seller's ability to generate insight into the buying decision, the way they look at solutions, their buying process, lots of different elements, but the ability to provide insight and help the buyer see things they didn't see before. That's dimension number 1. The second dimension was influence. Sellers have to be able to behave in ways that influence buyer thinking and buyer outcomes. And that's around the decision science and buyer psychology and all of that. But there was a third dimension that was also vital, and that was trust. So think trusted advisor, think, how you build these strong relationships over time. And what he found is that sellers that even don't really influence and don't build trust, I'm not going to do well. And so all 3 of those dimensions balance each other out when it comes to sales execution to drive execution that wins. So if you add the whole idea of agility, assessing buying situations, choosing the right play, and then executing that play, leveraging insight, influence, and trust, that's really the sweet spot.
Yeah, amazing. And this is in the book, right?
The first 2 parts of that are in the sales agility code. The 3D advantage is not in there because I was acquired after that book was published.
You were acquired. Where were you?
I was acquired. My company was acquired.
You basically sold your company, right?
I did. And now, part of purchase for company, yes.
Yeah, and that was Vantage Point?
Yeah, Vantage Point Performance, yes. They purchased our company in 2023. And then we brought these bodies of work together, the 3D advantage, the 3D mindset, and the sales agility code to create 3D sales agility, which is our methodology.
Yeah, and it's absolutely not even blowing smoke. It's really research-backed, proven insight and methodologies for growing a company. It's been amazing. I've been in sales for 30 years. I've built teams all over the world. I've been working on cracking the sales code and in the laboratory, and I'm still in the lab, and I coach companies and build sales teams myself. It was so refreshing and enlightening, and I got so much insight out of you guys' work that I'm eternally grateful. And I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say it better than that. And anybody out there, if you really want to take your company, your organization to the next level, you got to reach out to now Imparta or get the books, because Michelle is the real deal. All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Michelle Vazana. Transform your organization. Go look her up. Thank you so much for being on the show.
That's a wrap, folks. Thanks for joining me today. And if you got value from this episode, do me a favor. Like, subscribe, and refer a friend. And if you want even more value, go to thesalesmachine.com, click on resources, and there's tons of resources there to increase profits and drive performance in your business. Right on, come on.